Stand back while I blow your mind here. I love Mario. Truly a shocking statement from a Nintendo fan, but I'm serious, man. The character and series are some of my absolute favorites of all time, and to sweeten the deal, consistently put out phenomenal bar-setting games. While my shirt and my backdrop should make it very clear that my favorite thing Mario does is drive karts, I still love pretty much everything else, especially the platformers. Hell, the original Super Mario Bros. Is one of the first games I ever played, albeit in the form of Super Mario Bros. Deluxe for Game Boy Color. For some reason that I really don't have an explanation for, however, after I beat the first new Super Mario Bros. Back on the DS, the platformers really just dropped off my radar. I remember liking this game, but was there something wrong with it? What the hell did it do to me? Regardless, I pretty much just stuck to the spin-offs for like 7 years until 3D World came out. I know a lot of people aren't too fond of that game, but I gotta be honest, I kinda love it. It's got great music, the levels are varied and interesting, and I think the biggest reason so many people weren't into it is basically that it's not like 64 or Sunshine. I do agree that those games are better, but that doesn't mean this 2D, 3D hybrid style isn't also really good. And hey, 3D World had a predecessor that I don't recall ever playing a substantial amount, so why don't I give it a shot? Super Mario 3D Land was released back in 2011 for the 3DS. Considering how hyped I was for the 3DS and how desperately I wanted games to play for it in that first year, I really can't imagine how I managed to miss this game. Huh. Well, I guess I have played this game before, because by golly, that's a save file. Got all the way to World 5 too, jeez. I think the same thing happened with New Super Mario Bros. U, where I definitely remember playing it, but don't remember any of the actual game. November 5th, 2013, huh? I wonder if something else came out around that time that distracted me. Well, that explains a lot. So the first way this game differentiates itself from other Mario games is how layered and complex the story is. You see, in this one, Bowser kidnaps Peach. I know there should really be no expectations on this front in terms of Mario games, but I was kinda surprised with how actually little there is here, and it's weird. All the characters are really well animated with a ton of personality and vigor, but then the entire plot is just told through postcards. This isn't really a complaint though, because the art on all of them is excellent. And the reason I think they did this is that they knew the moving images would look pretty fun with the 3D effect on, which they obviously wanted to show off so close to the console's release. Speaking of the 3D effect, I think this is something we should get out of the way right off the bat. I love the 3DS. I got it early enough to be considered an ambassador. I have like 7 of them. This may legally count as an addiction. And yet, I just do not ever use the 3D function. I never liked holding it in the specific way they wanted me to, and whenever I did, it just never really impressed me. That being said, by the time I got to World 3 in this game, it was on and staying on. What can I say? This game has one of the most elegant uses of the 3D that's not only cool looking, but actually enhances the gameplay. As a lot of you may know, I have long had a problem with depth perception, as in I have a really hard time telling how close or far things are when I'm playing games. But this game absolutely obliterated that problem. Sure, I still wasn't perfect, but I heavily appreciated the extra clarity. And honestly, next time I play a 3DS game, I think I'm gonna try the 3D. This game has convinced me it's cool. Needless to say at this point, I think they knocked it out of the park. As I described it earlier, this game is a solid mixture of 2D and 3D Mario. Obviously, the whole game takes place in 3D, where you can move in any direction you want, but much like the side-scrollers, pretty much every level has a straight path to the flagpole with slight deviations. I swear to God, I'll try to stop mentioning these games in literally every video, but this reminded me of the original Crash trilogy. They're both mostly linear 3D platformers that occasionally put the camera down to let you take on a side-scrolling section. The difference is that this game is generally more open, which could be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. Personally, I think both styles work perfectly well for the games they're in. If Crash games were as open as this, I'd start shitting just thinking about getting all the boxes. And likewise, there wouldn't be all that much to do if 3D Land was laid out for a Bandicoot. As usual for Mario, we've got 8 worlds made up of a bunch of individual levels, always ending in either an airship or a castle. I did notice and appreciate, though, that they seemed much less interested in having a consistent theme in each world than usual. There's no, here's the desert world with 8 desert levels, eat up. It's far more varied. On one hand, I kinda like having the world themes and seeing how each theme-specific idea evolves from level to level. But on the other hand, man, you just cannot beat that sheer variety. Much like in the 2D games, our Overworld is a world map connecting each level in a world. I find it strange that, in this game where they're constantly flexing their ability to pull and push things towards and away from the camera, they decide to put all levels in a straight line, but it's not a big deal. And just as a side note, I love the little dioramas of each level, and some of these are so cool I'd honestly love to build them in real life. I also heavily appreciate how short some of these levels can be. I've established that I enjoy them, so you'd think I'd want them to be as long as possible, but that's not really true. Unlike myself, I would describe these levels as the perfect length. You jump in, see what cool idea they have, and boom, you're on to the next one. The Mario level designers have long been praised for being masters of their craft, and my god is that on full display here. Even if some of the later levels can be a little frustrating, I think I can honestly say that there were no bad levels in this entire game, which is saying a lot considering there are almost 100 levels. Out of these, my favorites are definitely 6-1 and 7-4. The latter reminds me of Tick-Tock Clock from Mario 64, but it's got this cool little maze-like section in the middle that I honestly would not have minded seeing a lot more of. 6-1, on the other hand, is just the best. The summertime aesthetic is amazing, I love the music, I just want to dive through my 3DS screen. Scattered throughout these levels are 3 special star medals that are usually hidden in clever spots, but sometimes aren't. These are, of course, related to 100% completion, but you also need to grab them to unlock some of the later levels, and I absolutely advise you to grab as many as you can. Mario games are always pretty easy, but even in that small pool, 3D Land is considered to be one of the absolute easiest. In regards to the levels themselves, I don't know if I agree. They can be kinda tricky, but in regards to actually getting a game over, Jesus, please, I amassed over 300 lives without even doing the exploit. No, I promise I didn't. Ignore what you're seeing on screen right now, I swear I didn't. This is why I'm telling you to collect the star medals, though. They're that last little thing these levels need to keep them from being absolute cakewalks. While all the levels that take place out in the open just end with one final obstacle and a flagpole, the airships and castles tend to have a little something extra. It's boss fights. I'm gonna talk about the boss fights now. Since this game just loves its Mario 3 callbacks, the boss you'll be facing most often is Boom Boom on the airships. He swings his arms, you jump on his head, easy as always. However, this time he brought a friend, Pom Pom. She's basically the same thing except she throws boomerangs at you and attacks from the sky. Nothing crazy, but at least they mixed it up a little. In the castles, you'll find yourself dealing with Tail Bowser, who turns out to just be a normal enemy in disguise. How does this work? There are literally versions of those enemies with tails in this game. Regardless, the Big Bowser himself is obviously the boss of the World 8 castles, and aside from his nonsense in the big final battle, plays exactly the same as the enemies in disguise. There's also Dry Bowser. Why is he here? He's functionally identical to the other Bowsers, but he only shows up in the 8 special worlds. My confusion comes from the fact that Bowser really never has a transformation in this game like he does in the other ones. I have an answer though. Who cares? In terms of power-ups, this game is actually kinda light. The classic Small Mario Super Mario Powered Up Mario system is back, although one crucial detail that I heavily appreciate is that your default state is Super Mario. It eliminates the hassle of getting a mushroom and then a power-up, which would have been extra bad here considering how shockingly rare they can be in certain levels. The Star and Fire Flower are here as usual, doing what they always do, but this game was also the big reintroduction of the Super Leaf from Mario 3, turning you into Tanuki Mario and letting you whip people with your tail as well as slow your fall. There's also the P-Wing from Mario 3 that takes you straight to the goal if you keep failing a level, which I don't have any footage of because I'm not a f***ing baby. In the way of new power-ups, we've got 3, but kind of only 1? First up, there's the Invincibility Leaf that turns you into White Tanuki Mario, which shows up like the P-Wing, but instead of taking you to the end, it gives you a Tanuki suit that's invincible like you have a star. Again, I'm not a f***ing baby. Secondly, there's the Statue Leaf, which turns you into yet another version of the Tanuki suit. This one has a bandana around its neck and lets you turn into Statue Mario when you ground pound, which makes you invincible for a short time. I'm not really sure why this wasn't just the normal Tanuki form, and I super don't understand why it waits until after World 8 to show up, but whatever, I like how the leaf looks. The only brand spanking new power-up this time is the Boomerang Flower, which gives you the powers of a Boomerang Bro. I like this one a lot. It's obviously nothing mind-blowing, but it's just a good, long-range weapon, and I love that it can collect any item it hits. Regardless of how much I like it though, there's just no beating the Tanuki. It's obvious from the box art that this is the power-up you want to be using, and yeah, it's the best one. The speed of the tail swipe makes it possible for you to just tear through enemies without even really slowing down, and the flying. To say the flying breaks this game is to make me chuckle. The flying dices this game into precisely 96 tiny pieces. It gives you an ability to save yourself from falling unheard of in 3D platformers, and sometimes you can just skip the level? Seriously, was this intentional or did they just not think about that? I felt morally bankrupt doing it. Moral of the story, the Tanuki is powerful, and I found myself wanting one pretty much 100% of the time that I didn't have one. Did I just say 100%? Please God, tell me I didn't. Around the 6th world, I realized that I was loving this game so much that I just had to 100% complete it, especially since I was already collecting all the star medals. It was around an hour or two later when I realized that 8 more worlds just opened up and that this decision may have been a mistake. But hey, after the first special world, we unlock Luigi. For some reason, the Super Leaf gives him a functionally identical Kitsune suit rather than a Tanuki one, which I love, but is also weird. Then again, it is Luigi. Boy, I can't possibly think of any negatives that could possibly come from unlocking Luigi. Alright, I can't take anymore. Rather than a percentage, this game uses profile stars to determine completion from 0 to 5. The first star is earned by beating World 8, okay, no problem. A second star requires you to get every star medal, again, makes sense. A third star is added by clearing all the special worlds and then beating Bowser again. Alright, that's a lot of extra content, but it's certainly still sensical. A fourth star is obtained by getting the gold flag on every level by hitting the very top of the flagpole. Alright, that's really dumb and super tedious, and these requirements are really starting to stack up, but fine, they're not that hard to get. Fine. And star number 5. Oh, star number 5. For star number 5, you have to beat every single level as both Mario and Luigi. That's right, even if you fully complete everything in all 95 available levels as Mario, you have to play them all again as Luigi. No changes, nothing that Luigi can do that Mario can't, just Luigi. Now let me be honest with you, running through them all again is not that bad. Like I've said, I love the levels in this game, and they're super short if you're just dashing through them for the goal. But I just cannot believe they would require you to go through such pure tedium. If you can manage to stay sane through it all, however, you're left with one final challenge: 8-Crown. This final level, only unlocked on profiles that have 5 stars, is meant to put everything you've learned to the test. But honestly, it just kinda doesn't. I had heard that this was one of the most difficult levels in any Mario game. This may be controversial, but I honestly don't think this level is very hard at all. I think I can honestly say I struggle more on basically any level in Mario 3, and I've played that game 100,000 times. It took me less than 30 minutes to beat the stage without a single power-up, and a lot of the quote-unquote difficulty I'd more reasonably call tedium and bad design. Unfortunately, this final level is probably my least favorite in the entire game, but it absolutely didn't soil what was otherwise such an enjoyable experience. And yes, just to say that I did it, I also beat the final level with no power-up Luigi, and even saved myself a Kitsune suit to make sure I got that gold flag at the end. 3D Land is a game that I doubt anyone truly hates, but it's probably the most bashed Mario platformer out there. Going into it, I was told to expect something so bland it was unbelievable, so inconceivably easy that it couldn't even be enjoyed, and instead, I got one of my favorite Mario games of all time. I mean, let me just reiterate the fact that in the time I normally take to play through a game's story mode, I ran through probably over 200 level playthroughs and honestly never got sick of it. Never got sick of doing awesome tricks with the Tanuki suit. Never got sick of running through these bright, beautifully colorful environments. Never even got sick of that music that was shared by so many levels. Can you believe that? This game went from that weird 3D World predecessor that I felt I probably shouldn't even bother playing to possibly the single Mario game I am most likely to replay just for fun. It should come as no shock at this point that if you skipped on this game, I believe you thoroughly missed out and you should definitely go back and give it a shot. And hey, don't sleep on that 3D effect either. Come on, Nintendo. I'm an adult. I know when I need to take breaks. Okay, but like, who really needs eyes?